So the term system player is used often by people across sports because it's a term that's not specific to any one. A football player can be a system player, so can a basketball one, and so can an American football one. Only problem is a lot of people don't use the term correctly. Most of the time it's used as a knock against the player for some reason, but when used correctly, it can provide a solid explanation for why a player doesn't work out after joining a certain team. The loose definition of a system player is a player that's only successful because of the specific role they're playing in a specific team. They have to have the right teammates and the right tactics to be elite. If the level of play drops off the second they're playing in a system that's not the one they're normally in, you could argue that they're a system player. People assume being a system player is automatically a bad thing because they think it's you saying the player can only be good on one team. That's not exactly true though. A system player can be good on numerous teams as long as those teams all have similar styles and the right player in the right areas. People sometimes confuse system players for centerpiece players. A centerpiece player is obviously a player whose team is built completely around him. While the two kinds of players have similarities, they're not exactly the same. A player can have a team built around him, but that doesn't mean he would only excel in that system. It just means that could be the best one for him. System players would struggle outside their system. Centerpiece players don't necessarily struggle outside their system. They just have a team built to suit them because they're the most essential player on the team. Look at Messi, for example. There's numerous instances of players coming to Barca and they failed or left because they couldn't fit the system that was built around him. Zlatan, Coutinho, Griezmann. Because he's the centerpiece of the team, though, everything moves around him. He isn't part of the system. He is the system. The idea that Messi is a system player and that's why his main success was at Barca the majority of his career would make sense, if not for two reasons. Firstly, Barca didn't just have one system when he was there. They went through numerous different eras under a bunch of different coaches who used different tactics. There was Pep with his tiki-taka. There was Enrique with his more direct and attacking style. Then there was Valverde's heliocentric style, which at times really just consisted of, where's Messi? Find him and give him the ball. You can't say Messi is a guy who relies on one system if he's thrived in a bunch of different systems that often had very different playing styles. The main common denominator in all of these different systems is Messi. Even all the way back before the one-man army days later in the decade, all the way back in 2013, players like Iniesta were already saying that Barca heavily relied on Messi. People try to point out the fact that he left for PSG and struggled, so that must mean he's only successful at Barca, but it's definitely the other way around. PSG is the only place he ever struggled in his entire career, and it was only for one season. That says more about them than about Messi. The midfield was ass, chemistry awful, and the attack was too Mbappe-centric. With Neymar not being able to stay consistently healthy, Messi was the main one creating chances, and as he aged, it got harder for him to do all the work. He wasn't able to press, and that didn't help a team that already struggled with effort. A lot of people also expected him to put up his same Barca numbers when he wasn't the main guy anymore. He played deeper now, and his main role was creating chances. Everyone mentions the 6 goals from his first PSG season and not the 15 assists. Context matters. To top it all off, after Messi left, Barca fell apart and were actually fucking gross for a while. Got grouped in the UCL back-to-back seasons, and they still haven't built back up a distinct identity. They haven't properly recovered from his departure. Meanwhile, Messi won a World Cup in a whole new system. Was Argentina's system in 2022 still somewhat Messi-centered? Yes, but similar to all the different systems under the different managers at Barca, the main similarity was Messi. Calling Messi a system player is like calling, Steph Curry one, for example. Do the Warriors have a system set up around Curry? Yes, he needs playmakers around him that he can give the ball to so he can find space. He's the best off-ball player in NBA history. But the only reason the Warriors use that system in the first place is because Curry's the best three-point shooter ever. He's the main cog in the wheel. Everything falls apart without him. If Curry left the Warriors, the whole system falls apart while his new team would probably build the same exact system with similar profiles around him to maximize his talents. It's kind of the same situation with Messi and Barca and Messi and Argentina. People call Haaland a system player because he has elite creators all around him feeding him, but a player can't be a system player if they're scoring everywhere they go. Haaland may only have one main role in the teams he plays in, which is scoring, punching in goals, and drawing attention from defenders, but he plays that role to perfection. That doesn't make him a system player. It makes him a world-class striker because that's a striker's job in almost any system. Being a poacher doesn't make you a system player. Zinchenko would be an example of a system player, quote-unquote. He would be a terrible left-back in a lot of teams other than City or Arsenal because of his awful defending, but those two are possession-centric teams where his passing and inverting is essential to their style of play, so you could easily argue that he only excels in a specific kind of system. Trent is kind of a weird one. He's improved as a defender, but for most of his career, he's been poor or below average defensively. He excels because in Liverpool's system, his role as a creator is more amplified than it would be on other teams, and he's given more freedom going forward. It works for them, and his defensive shortcomings are absorbed by his partners on the back line, usually. That's not to say that Trent wouldn't be good on other teams. We're specifically talking about him as a Liverpool right back, though. There's also the whole rigid versus flexible thing. I don't really like when people act like a more versatile player has to be better than a system player because he can do more. What really makes one better than the other? If I'm a manager, I'd take a player that fit perfectly into my system over a player that's versatile enough to slide into any team and succeed. There's players that have all kinds of flexibility and versatility, but they're not as skilled in one particular thing as another player, and it makes that other player more valuable. Neither of them are system players, but look at Jesus and Haaland. Jesus is way more versatile than Haaland and one of the most skilled strikers with the ball at his feet. Link-up play, he's elite. Dribbling, he's elite. Movement, elite. But nobody would say he's better than Haaland because Haaland excels at the one main thing he needs to excel at. You could easily argue that there are plenty of defensive midfielders more versatile and overall skilled than Sergio Busquets. But in the system that suited him perfectly, Pep's at Barcelona or the Spanish national team around the 2010 years, there's no CDM you would take over him. I don't know, I feel like the whole idea of being a system player has turned into this negative thing that's really not bad at all. Sure, you could argue it's better to be more versatile, but in the modern climate where a lot of managers are copying each other's tactics trying to create the ideal modern football team, you could also argue there's nothing wrong with suiting a specific style of play. There's also the argument that everybody's a system player because there's always going to be a system that suits a player more than any other one. I can understand that angle, but I feel like for that point to be true, you'd have to look at the definition of system player a different way. And the most common definition, or the definition that I personally feel makes the most sense, it's not exactly a player that has systems that suit him better, but a player who actually struggles outside of a specific role. There's definitely a difference. I don't know, who's a player that you think is a system player? I'd like to hear a few names that I haven't heard before because everyone just says the same guys. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'm going to see y'all next time.